Next up on this week's episode of Burnout is the one and only Eric Dillard, owner of Proline Racing Engines and kind of the man when it comes to turbocharged and now centrifugally supercharged power plants, specifically for outlaw and pro mod style drag racing competition. What's up, Eric? How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you guys?
Man, swinging and ducking, doing that quarantine life, trying to stay safe and keep ourselves afloat in these uncharted waters. That kind of leads us to our first question. I'm curious, earlier in the show, we talked about how we talked to some businesses that seem to be business as usual. Then we talked to other businesses that are either up a little bit or seeing no difference, or, it's complete terror and they don't know what they're going to do next. How have you guys down there in Ball Ground, Georgia, been weathering this coronavirus storm?
It's been tough. When they canceled the Gators pretty much that Thursday, by that Monday, it was pure silence at Proline. So, in our world, we really cater to that top level racer that's out at these NHRA, PDRA style events. So I always try to tell people we were almost hit like the airline industry or like a concert would. We felt it immediately, and we reacted immediately. I think that's one thing that helped save some of us that were affected. We got to react quickly because it was so heavy, so quick. It wasn't one of those downturns where you were wondering what tomorrow was going to bring. We knew within 24 to 48 hours what was going on. So we took care of the guys. We did the best we could for 3 weeks, and I sat down with all my employees. I think the third weekend, and even having to tell a group that you're going to have to put people on unemployment when you've never put one person on unemployment in 15 years. That's a pretty your tears were coming to my eyes out there talking to the guys, but things worked out in a way that everybody was able to make the best of it, from us to the employees and across the board. A lot of people walked right back in the door and said, hey, we want to work no matter what, so it just kind of shows you the people you have working for you. So now it's been tough, but it was 7 to 8 weeks of that. And these last 2 to 3 weeks have shown, just with the hype of we're going to go racing, we've started to see that upturn and it's starting to come back.
So how do you think this break in racing is going to affect in the long term? Do you think it's going to be more just a short-term impact? Is it going to be a long-term impact as far as racers spending money on
as soon as kind of the third or fourth week settled and everybody kind of knew where we stood, and we started out with it just being a health crisis and not a financial crisis. And then as the fifth, the sixth, the seventh week, everybody's like, well, this could get into a little bit more of a financial crisis than we thought. But what's interesting is, here we are already on the upturn, and I've already sold 3 or 4 engines in the last 2 weeks. We've had a lot of engines dropped off to be rebuilt. We're holding true to our pricing, and people aren't trying to really, they're not really trying to aggressively change that, which, you don't know when you come out of this. It's like, hey, man, we can do this, but we're not seeing that. People are respecting that. And I think that's, if that's the case with us, I think it's going to be the case kind of across the board. So it's for us, as bad as it was for 8 weeks, it's starting to look like the light came back on, and we're kind of almost back to business as usual. We're just waiting for the attrition rate on parts. Nobody's racing, so we're not seeing that end of it, but that'll happen here. You do, between last week in Tulsa to Woodstock to COVID-8 to all these things, and that'll turn itself right around.
So through those 8 weeks of downturn and quietness, what have you guys done at the shop? Have you tackled any major projects, whether it's, increase the efficiency of the shop in terms of workflow, what projects did you guys look at? R&D, anything like that, or did you guys just kind of hang out?
Mainly, we pushed R&D back because we knew without the racetrack development, you can only do so much on the dynos with the horsepower combinations we're dealing with. So we really worked on efficiency. We've grown a lot in the last 4 to 5 years. And it seems like no matter how many people we hire, we're still chasing it every day. So for us to get that break, we've brought on a few employees that have really helped us on the strategic side of running our business, from just processes, procedures, policies, organizational structures. And I think we've taken Proline over this last 8 weeks, and probably, it's crazy to say this, but it was a blessing for us. We were doing so many things I think in the industry, I feel we do a good job of what we do, but internally we felt like we were failing in a lot of areas. And I think that's that push to just keep doing better. But we've spent so much time over the last 8 weeks with a good group of core people here in our management group to take Proline, I feel, to a level that we would have never been able to without this break. And we're rolling that out with all of our employees now. From, cleaning up and doing all that's one thing, and it's great, but running a better system, having we now, when our guys leave, they've got a pre-race checklist they never had before. We had it, but it was never really implemented the way it should have been. Now everything's on Google Docs, it's on forms, it's drop downs. They can click every box they need to. When they come home from a race, they have to do a post-race team report. Where'd you go? What'd you do? What'd you take from the trailer? Who'd you borrow from somebody else? What's the rig need? What's our drop dead dates on parts to be back in your pit before you leave again? When they submit that form, it goes to the team owner, it goes to the car chief, it goes to every crew member. So we've really taken that same concept in every single department of our business and just changed the whole face of how we run Proline every day.
It's crazy, man, because that's the thing that I think is so cool about racers being problem solvers, that people such as yourself, and I feel I've very much experienced a similar thing with my own businesses, is that like we've got to find a way to identify some sort of silver lining to this very rare moment to plan and improve, because it's that thing we're so often, I mean, I think I can speak for all of us, that we spend so much time executing, like in the throes of things, that there's no time to examine processes and improve them, to kind of, you know, bookend this and go back to racing a little bit. I'm just curious, one of the things that I've always believed is the most important thing for drag racing is successful promoters. And spending a couple of months where there are no races, and have you maybe been, have you seen that or kind of had any sort of realization that like, man, none of these businesses can do what they really want to do or should do without places for these guys to go race? Because I think sometimes in the past, places to race have been like an expectation. You know, there's always going to be somewhere to go race. If this goes away, there will be that. Well, we all lived through a couple of months of there being zero options. So I'm wondering if all of us in the industry will have a newfound appreciation for really quality places to race for our customers.
Right. No, and I agree. And my motto from early on, our marketing strategy has always been through the actual promoter. We've been with Donald since his first race, and we've been there for him the whole thing. So we've been with PDRA, we've been with, you know, Orska back in the day. Our big thing is where we spend our marketing dollars and standing behind our product and promoting the promoters. You know, so we want to make sure we're funding those races, because without those races, we don't have a business to support. So we chose that early on. And I think that goes to say that like we really believe in the people that put on these races and the time and effort it goes into it. That, you know, we see that, and we saw that before now, but like you're saying, you see it a lot more when you don't go anywhere for 8 weeks and how that affects your business. Because we were at a absolute standstill. We don't deal with. It's interesting because I'm on both sides of the fence, because, you know, I work a lot with the guys at Fuel Tech, and, you know, when you've got a price point from $0 to $2,500, we were still servicing a client base, and it was good. And with us, you know, there's not much that starts below $2,500. So that all changed, and because of that, the race is not happening affected everything to do with what our day to day. So yeah, I see that definitely before, but I see it a lot more now.
I'm curious, do you think that there will be, what do you think that in an NHRA national, if you can look into your crystal ball, Eric, and I don't mean to put a bunch of pressure on you to call your shot here, but how different will an NHRA national event look in terms of participation if it is indeed August before we return? I mean, do you think we'll see an influx of a couple of cars that maybe saved some money, or do you think we're going to see people have shelved their program or sold out?
We've had a lot of discussions about that here, and I feel that from the pro mod standpoint, I think you're going to see just as much involvement as there was before. I don't really see that changing much. I think from the pro teams and from marketing, you know, a lot of those teams are driven off marketing dollars. So, you know, if a company can't see the marketing investment to put it into NHRA right now, they might have already shifted that money somewhere else, because it's just not warranted to go into that avenue. So if that's the case, how many pro stock and, you know, Top Fuel and we need those cars, no matter how much all of us pro mod racers, it's a great class. Right. We all are so passionate, love it, but the fuel teams still bring in the fans. So we need the companies out there that do support those types of pro teams to be involved. So the pro mod racers, I think, are going to show up and be ready to go and be probably more, like you said, more than less. Pro teams, I think, is going to be the issue if we have any.
I tend to agree, man. I tend to agree. Well, Eric, thank you so much for joining us, man. It's I think it's remarkable what you guys have done. You mentioned being in business for 15 years. It's hard to believe it's been that long since I met you in Huntsville, Alabama, behind the wheel. I think at that time, Todd Berry's twin turbo limited street Mustang. My goodness, right. It's been a hot minute.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, congratulations on all your success. And I'm glad to hear that you guys have been able to weather the storm. I'm not at all surprised, man. And I hope we get to see you at the racetrack very soon.